I always recommend get a client before you know totally what you're doing. Like, get yourself into a situation where you have to learn it. The only way to really get better is to...
Patrice Moore, six-figure entrepreneur who quit her 9-to-5 job to pursue her passion and scaled to $10,000 per month in under 6 months as a copywriter.
I had to go through a phase of literally having no clue what I was doing, to the point that I quit my job. I then invested the savings that I had into a course, and I had no choice but to make it work.
Why is copywriting important?
Well, 99% of advertising involves it.
You achieved something in 6 months that most people don't achieve in 6 years. What did you achieve in 6 months?
Well, in the last 6 months, I learned what copywriting was, got my first $2,000 client, and then this last month, I will have scaled to $10,000, actually more. So yeah, I went from not knowing what copywriting was to now living as a digital nomad, just moved out across the West Coast now. So created a little bit of freedom there.
That's like unbelievable, right? Honestly, people going from discovering what the hell that is to making $10,000 with that same thing, you had to learn fast, right? And I'm sure you learned a lot in that journey. So if you were looking back, you're going to talk to 6-month-old, you 6 months back, what advice would you give her?
Trust the process. Continue to invest in your education. Like, I couldn't have really planned it out to happen the way that it did. It had to just fall into place, and I had to go through a phase of literally having no clue what I was doing, but just trusting that I was going to make something work. And to the point that I quit my job. I was like, I put my back against the wall, and I then invested the savings that I had into a course, and I had no choice but to make it work. So yeah, I would just stay steady 6 months.
I love that, because you force yourself to take action. You had no room to sit and ponder and think. You just did it, right? And people out here who are questioning what they should do, I love that, right? And not everyone's in a financial position to quit their job, but if you are, that is amazing. So how did you discover copywriting? And let's give some tips around some best practices that, people in the audience can use to better their content.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I guess technically I started my first business at 19. So I had been copywriting unknowingly for a couple of years, which probably gave me a little bit of a head start. But it's a whole different language. So I thought I was good at writing. And then I discovered this whole different language that I had to relearn. And I basically just dove into it. I went there's this great website, swipe.co. You might know that. Where you can just read incredible copy. And I subscribed to every newsletter I could find. And I was just clicking on every ad and reading every ad. And I was literally writing for about 12 hours a day for a month straight. And I mean, to this day, I work between 12 to 14 hours a day because I'm addicted. I have an addictive personality when it comes to work. But that is, I think, why I was able to do it in 6 months. Because I just immersed myself in it. That was all I did, all I thought about. And I got really honed in on that.
So what did you learn? You subscribe, and that's I'll put that in the description below, that website. But what are some best practices? So if I want to improve my content, improve my copywriting, right? Give me some tips. Give me some best practices.
Study what's working. I always recommend get a client before you know totally what you're doing. So if you want to be a freelancer or you just want to improve your own copy, get yourself into a situation where you have to learn it. So whether it's a VSL or whether it's an email, whatever it is, put yourself in a situation where you have to write it and then figure out how to write it. And so I figure out how to do that by studying what's working for other people. So you can go and you can find a high performance VSL in your industry, and you can, tweak that to make it work for you. And you can try a couple different formats. But I think the only way to really get better is to write and to take, content that's really well performing and rewrite it and write it better and write it in shorter. One practice I love is taking a really good email and writing it in half the words. Because then every single sentence has to earn its place on the page, and every single sentence packs a punch. So I think that's a really good way, and it's hard.
It is hard.
Easier than it is. It's so hard to write it in half
that's tough. Or trying to make it into a tweet, it's incredible. It takes a craft to do that, right? And something, ChatGPT is obviously out there, but it's not the same as if you write it, right? So bringing up AI, a lot of people are saying, copywriters are dead, right? That's the catch line. But what do you think? What are your thought process on using AI, not using AI? Where are you standing?
I don't use it a ton. I think if you use AI, then you put yourself in the position to be replaced by AI. But if you use AI for market research and you use AI for creative brainstorming, or use AI just to go through something that's already written and just grammatically correct it or give you some tweaks or give you some potential objections, that's great. But if you have AI write your content, it's just taking what's already on the internet and repurposing it. That's all it has. So it doesn't have that creativity of a human to come up with something that's completely organic and new. So I never use AI to write something for me. I'll use it to brainstorm or get ideas. But yeah, I think if you're using it if you're writing, you're putting yourself in the position to get replaced.
There's always good and evil, right? There's good things about AI, and then there's evil things. And evil could just be, if you're using it, I agree with you. If you're using it to make your content, then you're not being authentic, you're not being real, you're not leveraging your own skill set, your own, you're really missing out on why people make content. If you're using it to brainstorm ideas to help you understand your customer better, because all AI is speed up the process, then it could be a powerful, powerful weapon, right? So speaking about the power of content, why is copyright, give me why copywriting is so important. Like, we all know content's important, but why is copywriting important?
Well, 99% of advertising involves words. And so whether it's a spoken word or a written word, it involves a copywriter. And when you are in that industry where you're servicing high-level entrepreneurs, it's a very valuable skill set to have. You can charge very high ticket for that. So I think it's just the reality of how we live today. Everything is a game of marketing. You can have an incredible product, and if you don't market it well, then it's not going to sell. And so given that everything is a game of marketing, and just about every piece of marketing involves written word or spoken word, it's a very high demand skill. So
I love that. 99% marketing is the written, or, whether you're doing written word or like speaking like this, you need copywriting. It's an important skill. So before we sign off, where can people find you? Where people can learn about you? Where can people hire you?
Yeah. My Instagram is Patrice A. Moore. It's just my name. So that's the place that I'm most active on. It's the same across every platform, but you'll find me on Instagram the most. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
For having me.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.